Did you know that in 2025, a seismic shift in global trade sent shockwaves across the world? When U.S. President Donald Trump unleashed a bold trade attack, slapping hefty tariffs on dozens of countries, 8 nations made a surprising move. They turned to India as their new economic ally. Why did they pivot? And which country's decision will leave you absolutely stunned? Stick around until the end, because number 1 will blow your mind. If you're Indian or just love global economic drama, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and let's dive into this game-changing list of 8 countries that chose India over the US in 2025. Starting our countdown at number 8, we have Brazil. In July 2025, Trump imposed a staggering 50% tariff on Brazilian goods, partly as a jab at Brazil's handling of former President Jair Bolsonaro's legal troubles. This move strained US-Brazil trade relations, pushing Brazil to seek alternatives. India, with its booming market and strategic position in the global south, became an attractive partner. Brazil ramped up exports of soybeans, iron ore, and poultry to India, with trade volume surging by 15% in Q2 2025, according to Reuters. India's willingness to negotiate favorable terms, especially for agricultural products, made it a lifeline for Brazil's economy, which was reeling from the U.S. tariffs. This shift also deepened India-Brazil ties within the BRICS framework, signaling a broader realignment in global trade. At number 7, South Korea made headlines in August 2025 when it struck a deal with India to counter a 15% U.S. tariff, down from an initial 25% threat, as reported by NBC News. Trump's trade policies pushed South Korea to diversify its export markets, and India's tech-hungry economy was a perfect fit. South Korea boosted exports of electronics, semiconductors, and LNG to India, with a $100 billion energy deal sealed in July 2025. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal emphasized mutual growth in a Lok Sabha address, highlighting how India's 5G infrastructure projects welcomed South Korean tech giants like Samsung. This pivot not only cushioned South Korea against U.S. trade pressure, but also positioned India as a key player in Asia's tech supply chain. Coming in at number 6 is Indonesia, which faced a 19% U.S. tariff in 2025, per NBC News. Indonesia, a major exporter of palm oil and textiles, found India's market more welcoming after Trump's trade barriers disrupted its U.S. exports. In June 2025, Indonesia and India signed a trade pact to boost bilateral trade by 20%, focusing on palm oil, coal, and nickel. India's push to diversify its energy imports away from Russia, amid Trump's threats of secondary sanctions, made Indonesia's resources critical. This move not only stabilized Indonesia's economy, but also strengthened India's role as a regional trade hub, with both nations eyeing a $50 billion trade target by 2027. At number 5, Japan, a longtime U.S. ally, surprised many by deepening trade ties with India after facing a 15% U.S. tariff, as noted by Reuters. Japan's auto and electronic sectors, hit hard by U.S. trade restrictions, found a growing market in India. In March 2025, India and Japan expanded their comprehensive economic partnership agreement, with Japan exporting $10 billion worth of machinery and vehicles to India in Q1 2025 alone. Japan's pivot was also driven by India's neutral stance in global geopolitics, offering a stable alternative to the volatile U.S. market. This shift, as reported by the Times of India, underscores India's rising economic clout as it eyes becoming the world's 3rd largest economy by 2028. Vietnam lands at number 4, navigating a 20% U.S. tariff by strengthening trade with India. According to NBC News, Vietnam's textile and electronics exports to the U.S. took a hit, prompting a swift pivot to India's $1.4 trillion market. In April 2025, Vietnam and India signed a trade agreement to boost exports of smartphones and garments, with bilateral trade reaching $18 billion in the first half of 2025. India's demand for affordable electronics and Vietnam's need to offset U.S. tariff losses created a win-win. This move also aligned with India's Make in India campaign, as Vietnamese firms set up manufacturing units in India, creating thousands of jobs. At number 3, the Philippines faced a 19% U.S. tariff, pushing it closer to India. The Philippines, a key exporter of electronics and agricultural products, saw India as a stable partner amid Trump's trade war. In May 2025, a new trade deal saw Philippine banana and semiconductor exports to India rise by 12% for the week. India's infrastructure boom, including smart city projects, absorbed Philippine electronics, while India's food security initiatives welcomed Philippine agricultural goods. This partnership not only cushioned the Philippines against U.S. tariffs, but also positioned India as a leader in ASEAN trade networks. This partnership not only cushioned the Philippines against U.S. tariffs, but also positioned India as a leader in ASEAN trade networks. With China's influence waning, Manila's pivot to New Delhi signals a bold new era of South-South cooperation, rooted in resilience, not reliance. And as India's economic web expands, even former U.S. allies are finding new opportunity in its rising orbit. Number 2 is Bangladesh, a surprising yet strategic choice. Trump's trade policies, including a 10% tariff on BRICS-aligned nations, hit Bangladesh's garment exports hard. In June 2025, Bangladesh and India inked a trade agreement to boost textile and jute exports, with bilateral trade projected to hit $15 billion by 2026, according to The Week. India's proximity and shared cultural ties made it an ideal partner. Bangladesh also benefited from India's push to diversify supply chains away from China, with Indian firms investing $2 billion in Bangladeshi textile factories. This move strengthened India's role as a regional economic anchor, challenging U.S. dominance in South Asia. And now, the number 1 country that will shock you, Pakistan. Yes, India's arch-rival turned to New Delhi after Trump announced a trade deal with Pakistan in July 2025, only to follow it with steep tariffs on non-compliant nations, as per Reuters. Pakistan, facing U.S. pressure over its neutral stance on Russia, pivoted to India to stabilize its economy. In a historic move, India and Pakistan signed a trade framework in August 2025, focusing on textiles, cement, and oil. Trump even quipped on Truth Social that Pakistan might one day sell oil to India. This deal, valued at $5 billion, marked a thaw in India-Pakistan relations, driven by economic necessity and India's growing global influence. The Times of India called it a diplomatic masterstroke, as India leveraged its economic might to reshape regional dynamics. And there you have it, 8 countries that chose India over the U.S. in 2025, reshaping global trade in the wake of Trump's tariff onslaught. From Brazil's soybeans to Pakistan's surprising pivot, India's rise as a trade powerhouse is undeniable. Which country's move surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments below. And if you're proud of India's global ascent, hit that subscribe button and share this video. Stay tuned for more updates on how India is redefining the world economy in 2025. See you in the next one.